Hello, my name is David Webb, and this is a video for Dweebovision. I am a Scrabble grandmaster, and in this video I am going to play Scrabble while providing in-game commentary on my moves. Hopefully this will help to improve your game, and be fun to watch. The game has just started, so let's join the action. It's my opponent to go fast. He's played Blend. That takes an E and an S at the end. I've got the blank, which is good. The rest of the rack isn't great. But do I have a bingo? I don't think I have a 7, and I'm not going to go through the alphabet for the blank because I'm fairly confident there isn't a 7 there. Now, what about the floaters? Can't see anything with the B or the L. Or the E, or the N, or the D. So, how to sort this rack out? I certainly want to play off the V and the U. So a play of VUM or OVUM would achieve that. I can play OVUM. Across here. And the rack leave is quite good. Way too many vowels, and another U has shown up. But is there a bingo here? I'm looking at the floaters in Blend. Epinuria is good as a 9-letter word. Quite tricky to see a bingo here. There are 8-letter words with 5 vowels. But if I can't find a bingo, then I'm certainly looking to play off the vowels, including the U. And I've got the P for score. I could play Pi-U underneath the U of ovum. That would score quite well. I do have the epi prefix. My opponent adds the E to Blend and scores 18. Pi-U is quite nice in row J because it stops my opponent playing in row H towards the right of the screen to get the triple word square. So this is what I'm thinking about. A vowel-heavy leave, but if I don't draw many vowels, this will be quite bingo-y. Now, surely I have a bingo here. I've got alliable or alliable in column 5, which takes a T in front. What else do I have? Well, I may have Borlia as a 7 on my rack. I've got likable with the blank as a K. But there aren't many spots to play 7s, but row J is available for likable and dough. My opponent takes out my alliable spot. So, what would be better than likable? Well, not very much. And this Places the B on the triple letter square, which is good. I don't think this plays anywhere else. 70 points. I draw the J, which is a good scoring tile. I don't have a bingo with this rack. John is good, John, as is Joe, Jar, and Joe with an E. Now I'm looking at the triple letter square at F2. I could play Jar in that spot. It would be nice to get rid of one of the O's, since they're duplicated. Great, I can play John across here, which does split up the O's. Not a great rackly, but no duplicates. 48 points is good. Is there somewhere better for my J that I've overlooked? I don't think there is. Well, that's quite a good pickup, in the sense that I'm not swamped with vowels. I only picked up one vowel. Through a T, I would have priorate. The T of Toa doesn't work. I don't think I have a 7 with this rack. Now, do I have... Well, I was looking for something through the J, but my opponent's taken that spot. Do his floaters help me? And I'm looking for bingos. They don't. So how can I sort this rack out? I've got the P for score. I want to play off one of the R's and reduce the number of vowels. So play a proa would achieve that, or aero. I'm looking in column 2 to see if I can play parallel to Judy. A word beginning OP. Can't see one. So where else can my P go? Well, I'm back to F2, that triple letter square. I could play pair, P-A-R-E. 22 points, which is not great, and I'm burning my E. And the rack leave of IOR isn't great. So can I do better? My O can go after UP. That's the U of ovum and the P of Paiu. And my R can go underneath MI. So let me just put this down. That's not bad as it stands. AEIPR is pretty good. The only way it would be better is by playing off a vowel, but I'm actually thinking about playing off a consonant. Well, that isn't good. I was confusing it with ERP. So that's 19 points, and it's not providing a great deal for my opponents. So I think that's fine. Capo Iaira is good through a floating O. But not many floaters on this board. It's principally just the D and Y of Judy. Well, that doesn't work. I've got a 30-point lead, which is good. Now, what can I do with this rack? I don't have a bingo. But it's quite a bingo-y rack, so I don't want to wreck it by playing off 4 or 5 tiles. If I played car at F2, then my opponent could put an S in front of it, and all 4 S's are unplayed. I could play pack in that spot. avoiding that problem. Still a vowel-heavy rack leave, which isn't good. But it's 22 points. And if I don't play there, where am I going to play? I think that is the obvious spot to play. An alternative is I2, but then the P would only be doubled rather than tripled, and I would be opening up column 1. I don't think I do have a... but I do. I have diatrita through the D of Judy. Fantastic. Well, that's just been taken out, and there goes the second blank. So, do I have a 7-letter bingo with this rack? My opponent has now got a 20-point lead, and I don't have any scoring tiles to really benefit from the triple word square that my opponent has opened, and even the D immediately above it is a blank, and so scores nothing. I'm pretty sure I don't have a bingo with this rack. It's quite bingo-y, but this is a non-bingo-y board, in the sense that there are very few bingo lanes. So I certainly want to play off my duplicate tiles. So I could play irate across here. I'm slightly torn on this move because this rack is close to a bingo, but I'm playing off a lot of tiles. But 30 points gives me a small lead. And the lack of bingo lanes on this board argues against keeping highly bingo-y rack leaves. Well, I now have a shortage of vowels, but fortunately I do have one. There is a good bingo lane in column 10, parallel to the D and E of DWEEB, so words ending ES do play in column 10. Through a... I was going to say through a U I would have cut grass, but I'm one letter short. Pi U takes an M after it. My opponent has got a 17-point lead. I don't need a bingo to win, but I do need to keep up. Uppo only takes an N after it, so I can't really place my C above I'd. I haven't got anything which goes after Mir apart from my S, and I want to hang on to that because I can't see anything great that I can do with it. Now I can play Gat across here, or Tag even better. Only 13 points. My opponent may be distracted by this triple word square. If I draw vowels, then I may be able to take advantage of column 10. But I really need 2 vowels, and I'm unlikely to draw 2 vowels if I'm retaining 4 consonants or 4 tiles. So this doesn't feel great, and the score certainly doesn't feel great. Is there a way of playing off one more vowel? Well, I don't think so, because I certainly want to play off one of the T's. That's pretty horrible. This is going to be a tricky rack to play through. And partly these horrible racks are due to my play of Irate, which took a very bingo-y rack and wrecked it. Well, that's good. My opponent has changed. Now, I can't place my X next to the E of D because I don't have a vowel which goes next to the D. So, is there anywhere for my X? And I don't have an N for a pawn. I could play cut down here for 15 points. My opponent changed 5, so he probably had a rubbish rack. So he probably still has got a rubbish rack. And there aren't many opportunities open on this board. I note that Mir takes an A and an E in front, so this is available for a 5-letter play. Now, should I change or play cut? Tricky. 12 vowels left out of 31 tiles. Not many vowels. So I'm asking for trouble keeping 5 consonants. But there's no blanks to be drawn. The Q's out there, so if I change, I risk drawing the Q and not the U. Now, is there anywhere I can play which doesn't use my vowel? I've only got 7 minutes left. And I'm certainly looking to play off more than one tile. Well, I'm going to play cut and change next go if I need to. This board is very tight, and my opponent may open it and provide some vowels. Well, that's about as worse as it can be. But it makes my life easier because I now can change. Only 12 points for my opponent, which is good. He provides no vowels. So, I change. I don't see any point in keeping the X since there's nowhere good for it. I have Riotise, which doesn't play at the moment. Payu takes an M. I don't think it takes an S after it. Now, what's my opponent going to do? I really want him to open up a bingo lane. He is 1 point ahead. If he doesn't, however, I can play off IO and leave myself with a really good 5-letter set. So I could play IO in column 12, making key and so for about 20 points. I've got 6 minutes left. My opponent's got 14. Riotise has no anagrams. There are no floaters on this board. Very tight board, all concentrated on the bottom left of the screen. It's unusual to have so few vowels in the bag and so few vowels on the board that are available to play through. Now, only 5 points for my opponent, which is good. Do I have a bingo through that G? I don't. I could play something like Goiter, but I don't want to wreck the rack leave when this is so bingo-y. This is a lot more bingo-y than the Irate rack. And I can play IO, which is good. $18 points. Wow, pick up of 2 eyes. That's dreadful in a bag with very few vowels. I'm going to struggle to play off both of them. That is immensely annoying. But I could play off just one of them next to the G of Grat to make G. Well, Hermit's 105 points for my opponent. That's a fabulous bingo for him. 8 tiles in the bag. What I'm thinking of doing is playing just one eye here because I can't see anywhere to play off 2 eyes. I don't want to draw the Q. That would destroy my chances. This is opening up a bingo lane, but it's a pretty rubbishy bingo lane. But I am, well, only 90 points behind, so this game is still winnable. And look at the high-scoring tiles out there, the Z, the X, and the Q, and it's possible my opponent could be stuck with the Q. So, do I have a bingo here? I'm not sure I do. And there are only 7 tiles left. On to an H, I would have Tigerish, but the H of Hermit's not available. If I played off GI, I would have a good rack leave. There are bingo lanes. There's column 10, column 14, column 12. I'm 87 points behind and my opponent's on turn. So I'm not in great shape. If my opponent's got the Q, I've provided somewhere for him to play it at C4. I'm fairly certain I don't have a bingo with this rack. Now where best to play GI? If I play it above the I of GI in row C, then I'm again providing a spot for my opponent to play the Q, and I may need him to be stuck with the Q. Because not only are there no U's left, there are no I's available for my opponent, and no T's to play cat. £12 points for my opponent. Do I have a bingo through the N of noon? There are 3 tiles in the bag. So reciting is good. Risting. Gurniest. Gurniest works. Igniters. I'm 100 points behind. So I don't think this is going to win. It is providing 2 spots for my opponent to play the Q. So he's not going to be stuck with it. But there is the X and the Z out there. And if my opponent has got the Q, he may well get only 11 points. Well, I think my winning prospects are remote. Indeed. So probably best just to play the Q for 11. Unless, well, the Z scores as much as the Q, so maybe I should look around and find somewhere to play that. £51 points for my opponent. Now, I could play my Q above the Eye of Gurniest. Is my opponent going to go out? He's got Renai on his rack. Does that play anywhere? Well, I can't immediately see where that plays. But the question for me is, can I get more than 11 points for my Z? And it would be nice to play off the W as well, but I can't see any I's which are available for whiz. I could play my Z here for 11 points, but that's no better than playing QI. I have 2 minutes left. Wow, great outplay by my opponent. Pass to end the game. And the final score, 365 to me, 477 to my opponent, a winning margin of 112 points. So well done to my opponent. Let's see what I missed. It was my opponent to go first. He played blend. This was my rack. I didn't miss a bingo. I played ovum for 16. Movie scores 2 more, but retains the U, so I prefer my play. This was my opponent's rack. He played Dev. Did he have a bingo? No, he didn't. Whoops. This was my rack. And here are the choices, and I played Payu at J10 for 25. Well, let me just go back. What I was trying to do was to see whether my opponent had a bingo with this rack, and he didn't. Then this was my rack, and Payu was my play. This was my opponent's rack. He played Toa, blocking my alliable, and I played likeable. What was better? Well, likeable for 70. I could have got 6 more points for obligeable through OB, but that opens up row O, and limitable at G11 through MI, again opening up row O, so not very much between those plays. This was my opponent's rack. He played Odear, and I played John, and that looks best. My opponent's rack, he played Judy, and this was a pretty good rack. It looked close to a bingo, but I couldn't find one. What did I do here? I played Or for 19, and I could have got more points, but look at the rack leaves here. The rack leaves are all awful, whereas after OR I'm leaving myself AEIPR, so I like my play. My opponent's rack. He does not have a bingo. He played Far. And again, I'm close to a bingo. No bingo playable. A8. Pacia was good, making use of the infill of FA and D to make Fard. That would have been pretty good. What did I do? I played Pack for 22. I think Pacia certainly a better play just on score alone. But Pack does leave a decent rack lead, which reduces the score differential. This was my opponent's rack. He certainly does have a bingo here, and he plays one. He blocked my Diatreator. Ouch, there was a bingo with this rack. Gosh, that's a shocking miss. Arietta was available. This is where I played Irate for 30, but I could have got 81 for Arietta. So, most remiss. My opponent's rack, he played Vin. And now, having had a bingo-y rack and played off 5 tiles, I have a very grim rack. Scrag and Smur for 39. Pretty good. I got 13 for Tag. Yeah, I think Scrag would have been better. What about the other options down here? Well, the first few are just variants on a theme. And then you're down to the low 20s with poor racks, poor rack leaves. My opponent has a dreadful rack. This is when he changes. I have a dreadful rack and I don't change. Tux was available at M10. Ah, making Vint. Yeah, that would have been better than my play. There's nowhere good for the X on this board, and this is playing off 3 tiles rather than 2. So you can see here my cut play left a significantly worse rack leave than the Tux. Well, my opponent changed tiles, but he has an awful rack and played Smirks for 12. This was my rack. I changed. And yeah, I think changing is better than all of those options. My opponent's rack hasn't improved very much. He played Grat for 5. I have Riot Eyes and know where to play it. And I played IO for 18, which felt good at the time. The rack leave of EIRST is good, and this was a good bingo lane in column 10, and also the G of Grat was available. So at this point I was 12 points ahead and with a great rack. But my opponent then comes up with a fabulous play of Hermits for 105. And I have pretty much the worst pickup imaginable with Rights, double I. And all of these moves don't score enough and spoil the rack leave. Now I played GI. One option which isn't down here, which may be worth considering, would be just throwing back 2 eyes. But anyway, I did play GI for 6. This was my opponent's rack. He plays Noon. And I bingo with Gurniest. I could have got 4 more points by playing Stingier, or Stingier. Yeah, nuts. Well, that would have just placed an E here, so although my opponent couldn't have played Wax, he could have then played Wex. And this was my final rack. Bears for 14, where's that? J. Oh, well, BEZ coming down here. That would have been 3 points better than my actual play. And then a great spot by my opponent of Siren. Oh, wow, that's a really good spot because he's making use of the fanned infill. So great spot by my opponent. So well done once again to him. That was a really tight game. All of the action was happening in the bottom left of the board. It was a very tight board. I did miss a bingo, which was really poor, given that it was a high probability bingo. But it was, in any event, a close game until my opponent's excellent spot of Hermits. And then my poor pickup with Rights prevented me from coming back immediately with a bingo. And then when I did have my bingo of Gurniest, I was too far behind, and my opponent was able to score well with his X, and the game slipped away. But a number of interesting racks, and particularly interesting to have a tight board. I think ordinarily the boards which are generated tend to be a lot more open, so it was good to have a tight board to consider. So I hope you enjoyed watching that video and got something out of it. My name is David Webb, and this has been a video for Dweebovision.